Hello,
Hello,
everyone.
everyone. Welcome to the You Don't Look Like an Engineer podcast. In today's episode, we are discussing a pretty cool subject.
Honestly, so true because, anyone and everyone who's worked at all might be interested in this conversation. And if you haven't heard it already, what rock are you living under? Because, it's kind of like a global shift.
No, if you haven't heard of it, I feel like you probably aren't part of it. And therefore, I'm like, wow, I envy you. No, I'm kidding.
No, what do you mean part of it? Part of what? Like work or
Part of
the conversation?
working. You know, like they are not part of the 9 to 5, therefore they don't really need to be paying attention to it. And I'm like, okay, are you either in high school or are you just like so independent financially?
Oh, well, if you're in high school, this will be coming up. If you are independent financially, please teach us your ways. Just kidding.
No, please do. I don't want to do 9 to 5 forever. Oh no! What do you mean? Like, this is not a lie to anyone. Like, who does? Please tell me.
Sponsor the podcast so we can be free.
I mean, anyone. Sorry. I mean, if you want to do 9 to 5 because that's what you want to do, like, go for it. But I personally don't want to do it all the time.
Exactly, and that's perfectly fine to have, a vision that is not bound by, a 9 to 5 structure or any structure. Everyone's got, their own vision that they want in life, but kind of along those lines and sort of getting control over your time and your life is sort of the theme of this topic and why it's so important to be talking about it in 2023.
And I guess also giving the emphasis that we are now in a world that focuses on productivity and efficiency, and that does not equal long hours. And we are transforming this sort of like concept. So yeah, I think it's really important.
Exactly. So if you've already read it in the title, it's along the lines of 9 to 5, the actual hours, not like a concept of a job, obviously. But we're trying to discuss today that are these working hours obsolete, essentially? Because working life as we know it today has changed pretty much from the start of the Industrial Revolution. Before then, economies were run by, small-scale entrepreneurs, we can call them, artisans and small-scale farming, and that was pretty much how everyone made money, which meant that social structures and economies and living was very much like villages, very, very small, concentrated areas where people worked right next to their house or sometimes even in their house, and everyone worked together. But the way we know working today didn't exist. The thought was, social structures have changed a lot since the Industrial Revolution. And I guess for the first time, it meant decentralizing employment from the house. So, for the first time, men's work life was very different to their home life. Like they weren't connected geographically at all. But again, that's a story for another day. Today, we want to discuss how work at that time differs to what we do today and why this might need a reform.
When you say that there was a separation from work and home, you mean like people going to the office, or what did you mean?
Yeah, people actually have to leave their home to go to a factory or a office or something because, when I was talking about small-scale farming and artisans, it was like a family lived in this place and maybe right next to their house was like the shop where they made all the tools or where they sold all their goods or where their farm was or whatever. So literally they'd have their family also working. So the husband and wife would work in the same thing, but they
like a
would
family
literally their
home.
home and their thing was so close together. So it was all molded into one. But then when the Industrial Revolution came, suddenly people were going outside of
During the Industrial Revolution, the 16-hour workdays were quite normal, and they were quite the norm actually. And these sort of like hours led to the first step towards considering a labor reform. In 1890, the government started sort of like tracking the hours that workers did, and it was sort of like an average of 100 hours a week. So it was quite common for people to be burning out, and that was just how it was.
But it's so crazy what people can get accustomed to. Like, can you
but
imagine?
also like
for us,
back
thinking
on the
of 16
day,
hours is crazy.
yeah, 100%. But back on the day, they
Yeah.
didn't have the technology that we have and all of these things. So a lot of the work that has been replaced by machines is actually really time consuming. So thank Lord for technology, but also crazy that we were able to do that.
Honestly.
Makes me sad. But yeah, I guess it's also like the type of work that people were doing at the time. Again, like we make an emphasis on technology, and like the things that we have today are quite advanced. But back in the day, people were like mining, or like they were literally like doing completely different things. Like you were saying, like they were probably like at a workshop developing like, I don't know, tools and things like that that we currently have now and are produced by machinery in seconds. So things have quite changed in that regard.
I guess the first time people started thinking about whether or not this 100-hour work week that was so normal, it was a little bit out of like needed reform. Let's just say that. Well,
It was
the
just
first time.
in inhumane.
Exactly. And there was a guy called Robert Owen, if you go back to like 1817, which is way before anyone was even talking about this. He had mentioned something that sounds familiar, but iconic at the time was 8-hour labor, 8-hour recreation, and 8 hours rest, which, if you look at it now, is literally how we've split up work. So naturally, for again, we're talking about mining and all these other, I guess, what was very common back in those times was working in factories, and in these factories, children also worked and adults also worked, and everyone was working like crazy long hours. So that led to a lot of safety issues, but also sanity issues, and not your mental sanity, but like actual cleanliness sanity.
Wow,
Yes, I
that's
think what
hectic.
is meant. Yeah, yeah. So I think that's when the workers first like started going on strikes, and
Yeah,
yeah.
I would have done the same thing. Like I would have been asking for my rights loud and clear. I would have been like, this is sad. Also, when did they actually establish that children couldn't work? Or like by what age, could you actually
That's a very
work?
good question. By 1833, child labor was further regulated and it became illegal for children under 9 years old
Oh my God.
to work. I know, and children under 13 weren't allowed to work more than 9 hours a day.
That's
Shit, man.
crazy.
That was in 1833, though. So, child labor was finally outlawed in the UK. Okay, 1833. But that was still just under the age of 9.
So if you are 10 years old, why are you not working? That's the question. Anyway, so Henry Ford was actually one of the first ones to introduce the 8-hour workday back in
I'm glad I can't.
1914. Sohan is still recovering from that very good joke that I dropped just then.
It was pretty good. It
We'll
was
give
pretty
her
good.
time. I actually didn't have a job when I was 10, so I'm glad.
I know, same. I
So
would have been
yes.
a black mark on the family.
So yes, what Henry Ford did actually proved to be a very successful technique, I guess, for Ford Motor Company in terms of productivity and profitability, productivity and profitability. Yeah, yeah, sounds better. Um, and then I believe they made it official that the work week was going to be 44 hours per week, and it was established by the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. And since then, we have probably been working 44 or 40 or 38.5 hours a week since. So it's funny that we haven't actually questioned how much like things have changed and compare it to that traditional way of working a week. Interesting, right?
It is 100% interesting. I guess it sort of worked. And I think, interesting caveat. But obviously, firstly, I'd like to flag that this whole conversation is mostly around developed nations because we know the story in other countries is very, very different. But also the fact that these 44 hours, quote unquote, and 38.5 are what is legally mandated. But you and I know because we worked in this industry, and also anyone else who has worked knows that
Yeah, 60-hour weeks are actually
easily,
normal.
yeah, exactly.
Sorry. 12-hour days here and there.
It's very,
Temporarily,
very
they
normal.
say. Sacrifices are made.
Yeah, and so quote unquote, yeah, these are what they said would work, but like everything, sometimes you just need a push, and it's fine. I guess
Yeah.
is it fine? Yeah, it's fine.
Ask again.
But yeah,
Is it fine? No, I'm kidding.
just yeah, adding that as a thing that while the mandates are there, like any work week looks very different for all these people.
Yeah.
But the
But
point is
can I
that
just,
yeah,
okay. No, I was just
yeah.
gonna say that essentially what we wanted to highlight was sort of like where this all come from and have a little trip to memory lane and yeah, just give you a history lesson because why not?
Because the foundation matters, right? And it
Mm.
just goes to show that because the industrial revolution is like very recent compared to how long, like the Middle Ages were, and people were farming and all that. So we did that for a very, very long time, and that was the norm. But like literally these changes have only happened since the like 1800s, which in the grand scheme of things is not a lot. So for to even be having this conversation where things should be up in the air, like, oh, is 40 hours normal, is 38 normal, is 30 normal, should make sense because we haven't been doing this for long enough to say that this is the way, if that makes sense. The only reason, and the reason why I think we should be having this conversation, is because the only reason this system worked is because it worked on a very rigid social structure, which was one person goes out to work, typically the man, one person stays at home taking care of the family and the household and all caretaking activities, because those are important as well, and they're a full-time freaking job, and that was typically the woman. And if those two things were happening, everything works. This
Yeah,
38.5
absolutely.
works. Yeah, exactly.
But
But
how
now,
things are going now, we
exactly,
need two
things are
people
very different.
working. I was reading
Yeah.
this article recently that said that even if two people are working now, it's really difficult
Mhm.
for them to even get like to buy a house in the future, let's say. And that before, back on the day, when one person was working, it was enough to sort of like have a house and provide for the whole family, or even
Literally,
like
yeah.
a family that is larger than like, four people. So
Yeah.
it's actually really interesting how, yes, the benefits of like technology, as we were talking about earlier, have not only changed the way we work and maximize, I guess, just productivity, and helped us, but it's also sort of like made things a little bit more expensive and like as we move.
Yeah,
And
inflation's gone up. Like cost of living is crazy, and it's like, uh, in very many ways, yes, both people have to work. But honestly, I wouldn't want to necessarily live in a world where only one person worked, because working and having a purpose outside of the home should be everyone's right.
oh my God, yes. And
Yeah,
this
yeah.
also today, I was watching this movie. I don't know if you guys have watched it, but I was like, I'm pretty bad when it comes to watching movies on my own because I get easily distracted. But it's Don't Worry, Darling with Harry Styles in Netflix. And it's about this like simulation. Okay. So it's essentially about these people. I don't want to ruin it for people that haven't watched it, but it's about sort of like two people living in a simulation. That's all I gotta say. And the girl sort of like starts finding out that something isn't right. Like she's like, what the fuck is happening? Her life is very luxurious, and she's like married with this guy, and they have a really decent job, but she doesn't work. She stays at home, and because she's at home all the time, I think she's starting like to actually realize that something's going on. She's like, this is not how it's supposed to be. And I have to just like obviously highlight the fact that I wasn't like 100% paying attention to the movie. But what stick with me the most was that the fact that she was not working and that she started considering reality. I was like, because I actually reflected upon that. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, if I didn't have my job, I'd be like, what am I doing with my life? I have to have a reason to get up in the
Yeah.
morning. And obviously, that's just not my work. That is not my job.
Yeah.
Sometimes, even like for certain people, like that, their job is just a vessel to get there. But
Mm.
you have to have something to keep you like, I don't know, alive and not feeling like you're
Yeah.
living as a part of a simulation or like a matrix, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
like the same day every day. And this is not shitting on anyone who, chooses to stay at home and take care of their family. Like we said, that's a full-time role as well. But to presume that someone is only going to do that and they're going to be okay is being very naive, because like the idea of having a purpose is a very fundamental human trait. And
And it's
people want to make a difference, and whatever it is, that calling might be music, that might be art, that might be, I don't know, sports or whatever. Like people have something they want to do. Whether they just want to pursue it as a hobby or as their a full time role, they should be allowed to pursue it. I feel like that's a basic human right. That's it.
exactly, and that's just to comment on that. I was so eager to just say this because, yeah, it is true. Like Maslow in the pyramid of needs that he has, he describes like essentially the first ones are physiological needs, then the safety
Yep.
ones, and then social needs, and then esteem needs, and then self actualization. So, according to Maslow and his hierarchy of needs theory, humans do need self actualization. Whatever it is, in whatever extent or context, we do feel better when that happens. This
Yep.
hierarchy of needs, it's also not just from a human behavior component, they also can be used at work. How? So
Mm.
certain humans, and I mean like the average person that comes to work is looking to have those needs fulfilled, right? In a personal aspect, but they are also looking to get those ones met through the company, therefore professional aspect. So if your job is already giving you food, then the next thing for the job to take would be the safety. Do I feel safe in this environment? Some females, for example, in the engineering industry or in male dominating industries, don't actually feel safe and therefore they leave. So they would feel
Yeah.
and meet or get that need met through another organization. There's other people that leave companies because they don't get their social needs met, because they are just equally as important, or like the STEAM needs. That's a massive one why people leave organizations, because they don't feel like they are recognized, like their skills are
A hundred
being
percent.
valued. Usually, this is where it's sort of like it stops in a professional aspect. They won't go to self actualization because it's really hard for people to actually fulfill these self actualization needs through a company. They actually have to look for other things within the personal life to get those one met.
And I like that you touched on that they will definitely try to get those needs met at a different organization, because this ties back into it. Like there's a purpose and there's a calling or something that person's following. It's not just that the hierarchy of need has dropped. That, oh, I just don't need to work. I don't feel safe and I'll just sacrifice everything. Fuck that. No. It's about, okay, if it doesn't met here, it's probably met somewhere. And that still doesn't change the fact that now 47% of the population of females, no, 40%, in most countries, 47% of the workforce is also women. Let's just say developed nations. And that just means that, to tie it back into the point, was that men and women are both at work. And that means that a lot of things that were full timely taken care of, like caretaking needs, are sort of been, what's the word, outsourced to things like daycare or aged care. And to be honest, these things are really expensive. I was like in the office and someone was discussing that if they were 15 minutes late to pick up their kid from daycare, they'd get charged like $40 or something, which is
Why?
insane. I don't know.
That is crazy.
It is crazy. And these things are so expensive. And like, we were talking about like cost of living is going so much like higher. But just because they're expensive, a lot of times they may not be accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the caretaking responsibilities are still taken on by women. And these women who want to work and who want to pursue a career or have to for their families, they are burdened with not just caretaking responsibilities, but also household pressures.
And may I please
And
add the fact that a lot of the times that these people that take sort of like the responsibility of taking care of the children are females is because not just because of the fact that they have been doing it for a long time and that's sort of like the stereotype that people follow, but because we are making changes in our, gender roles,
we
which
are.
is good. But
Yeah.
we still need support from organizations, because if you have a look at the organizations parental leave, women's get more time than men. So if your organization is going, like if your organization has a parental leave that looks like this, then reevaluate and make sure whether that is fair, because
Mm.
sometimes it prevents.
Men from being able to take care in households and provide caretaking responsibilities, and we know they want to because for the first time in history, more men are spending way more time with their children, and I think that's fantastic. It's so
I
cute. Yeah.
agree. I was actually having a conversation with a lady who is due in September, I think, and she's going on maternity leave pretty soon. And she was saying how she was like, "I'm just gonna disappear for like the following months." And I loved the fact that she said that. And then she was like, and she was actually really happy that like her partner was able to do the same, like was gonna be able to, like, not at the same time, but it was
Yeah.
going to help her. And then eventually when she sort of like returns to the workforce, he was gonna just like disappear. And I love hearing the word disappear, because I believe that it's so important to spend those first few years with your children and just having that journey, being able to
Mm.
say like I was there. Because otherwise, what's the point of living? Like, for real, like if you're gonna have a family and you're gonna be absent forever, then might as well just
It's
consider
crazy,
it.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Because they're called formative years for a reason. Like,
yeah.
and if
My
you're not
mom took
there
two
in the
years off.
formation, she took what?
My mother took 2 years off.
Oh, that's so cute.
Mm.
Wow.
Mm.
That's really amazing. And did you find it easy going back to work?
I wouldn't say easy, but
Yeah, easy is a
it
shit word,
was
sorry.
um it was sort of like a transition, and I think a lot of mothers would probably relate. But she said that it was hard to get back to work, not because of the routine of work, but the feeling of leaving your baby with someone
Oh.
else, like not spending time, like dealing with a lot of like
Mm,
self-inflicted guilt. Sorry, it's like
yeah.
challenging, but that's just one of the challenges, I guess. Because at the same time, you have to think about how like you're gonna get back on track, I guess. So
Yeah.
kudos to mums and fathers, because you guys are crazy, amazing, and yeah.
Just so interesting how stories can be so different. So I guess on my side, like my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and like she's been a housewife all her life. And I guess for me, that's why I feel so strongly towards, women's dreams that might be outside of the home. Like I don't know what she would have been, if social structure had been slightly less patriarchal. There's probably so much she would have wanted to achieve,
Oh,
and yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Did she
just so
have a
different.
choice?
Everyone comes from. I don't think so.
Mm.
Um, Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, but I know her dad was very different, but he passed away when she was really young. He had told her to study and, accounting, study accounting, and he
Mm.
said, you should always be able to have, you know, a good option that will allow you to be able to work at any stage in your life. And I guess he was quite forward thinking, but I guess after she got married, things just changed. I
Interesting.
don't know. Yeah,
What's
it's
your
just so
mom's
different.
background,
Everyone
just for
comes
the
from.
listeners?
I mean, it's pretty obvious from my face. We're Indian and my name.
I
So
love
yeah.
that. It's pretty obvious from my face, says the woman who stands for equity.
I mean, it's still all for the blatant truth that is there
It's so
when you
funny
can see it.
because I know this is a big
Yeah.
tangent that we have gotten ourselves into, but somehow we're
Yeah.
gonna link back to the 9 to 5 stuff. But it's so funny. I was chatting with a Colombian friend. I only have one. And I was saying to her, immediately when I'm in the streets and I see a Colombian, like I can just look at them in the eyes and I'm like, you are Colombian. So I guess you're right. Like when you know, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just know. Yeah.
So going back to our subject today, um, I guess it's also important to see that a lot of the population that are working or are part of the labor force currently,
Mm.
not longer people from what is that
The
generation?
boomers.
Yes. Now there's a lot of millennials and Gen
And we have different requirements. Yeah.
Z. And
But
I guess we
really
operate
quickly.
differently. Not different
Yeah.
requirements, it's just different operation systems. But yes, Sohan. I give the mic to
Yeah, I
you.
was going to say, like, if we could have a quick question answer thing, how many hours do you think, and this is again for the listeners to think of, but also for you to answer, of actual productivity in this 8 hour working day do you think people actually get?
I love this question. I love it because this is something that, remember how we were talking about self-inflicted guilt? No, I'm kidding.
Mm.
Every time that I come home and I reflect upon the time of works, the hours
Oh,
that I
that's
worked are real. Self-inflicted guilt is what I feel. Because I obviously, and just probably a lot of you
so
might be able to relate to these. I
funny.
don't work productively during those 8 hours. In fact, it's really hard when you are part of an office that has meetings for a. Ugh. It's really hard if you work for an office that has like a lot of meetings or that do a lot of like social things, or that when, like, for example, when you have a project that is like a lot of hours have to be done on site, and driving to that site takes you like 2 hours and a half. It's like, okay, how much work did you do? 2 hours and a half driving to the side and coming back, then 5 hours, and then 3 hours inside. Who's gonna like fill those reports up? Or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
anyway, but I
But
out of
assuming someone is just at their desk and not
me,
having to go on site
which is
and no
me,
meetings and no nothing, how many hours do you think realistically do they actually get of
I reckon
focus, proper
6
work?
or like 5.
You reckon? Oh, girl, you are so optimistic.
Well, I say that, but I also like, I don't know, maybe 5, but there's like a 30-minute break between those 5 hours. So maybe that's like longer than what you said.
Okay, so for all the listeners thinking along those lines, I was reading a book called Deep Work, and it's a fantastic book about, getting more out of your hours, essentially. But it was by Cal Newport, and he said, based on like all this research and all the work he's been putting in for so long of actual deep work, which means full focus, no distraction sort of work, you can build up to it. No one's really there at the moment, especially with like social media coming on. Like it's really hard to get that work done. But very nice photo.
Sorry,
It's
sorry.
okay.
We need to
But
post content. I'm
we
so
do, we do.
sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm still on the train of thought. So when you build up to maximum deep work capability, the maximum a person can get realistically is 4 hours. That's it. In one day, it is very, very difficult to get more than 4 hours. It's near impossible, actually. So, in a working environment where social situations are happening a lot, there are a lot of meetings, and intellectual work is fucking hard. Realistically, people are only in this is a result of a survey. This is not coming out of me. People only claim to get about, not claim, they're shown to have only 2.5 hours of actual productive deep work on any
That
given
is
working
so
day.
refreshing to hear. No, no, for real and out of jokes.
Actually? Okay.
Yeah. But
Oh, happy.
also,
Yeah, because,
like,
yeah,
obviously
refreshing to
I
me. But
feel
yeah.
like it is refreshing, but that doesn't make that it's fucked up. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
polarity, Sohan, we are big advocates about this. We can feel many ways about this statement, but it is refreshing because, again, like, the days that I guess, okay, I'm just going
Yeah.
to expand on what I mean by when I say is refreshing. There's a lot of
Mm.
people that have grown up in cultures where you have to work so hard from 6 a.m. until like 7, or like from 6 a.m. until 5 p.m. And if you don't work that much, that means that you like are not
It's like,
not a good
mm,
worker, or you are lazy. So if throughout that day you felt like you didn't get those many, I don't know, like if throughout that day you feel like you didn't do that much, or you actually didn't and couldn't focus, then it's refreshing to hear that there's more people out there
yeah,
going through this and it's not just you. That's what
exactly.
I meant by that.
Yeah. That makes sense. No, that makes sense. And obviously, we're not saying that, all, that's acceptable. Obviously, everyone should focus on trying to get their deep work capabilities going. I think reaching that 4 hours a day would be fantastic.
But we're not
But
accounting for people who have disabilities, you know? Like, what if you actually
yeah,
can't
yeah,
focus?
yeah. And so we're just talking about, again, able in the generic sense of the word. So realistically, if you're only getting about 2.5 hours, to pretend that you have to sit there for 8 hours and just for the sake of it is almost like an archaic concept. You know, we have so much more automation, we have AI, we have things that can help us with the menial the little tasks like emails and stuff. And so someone who is capable at their job, and we can assume they're capable by the results they achieve, should be able to have control over their time. You know, if they don't feel they work very well in the morning, or if they have an afternoon appointment, to have them just sit there for 8 hours for what? For like I don't know, like a, what's it called? That thing where it's just like an obligation. Yeah, just, I don't know, some sort of like namesake requirement doesn't make any sense. And so the
Mhm.
idea here is just to allow people with enough autonomy to understand their time and be able to take control of their time, because you're not getting too much out of their time in 8 hours, essentially, anyway.
Yeah, and I think a big wow, that is so true. But I was gonna say that we sort of like saw this happening when COVID hit. Like it wasn't obvious for
Exactly.
everyone
Yeah,
until
yeah,
COVID
yeah.
hit. And like it was sort of like also I feel like the circumstances at the time were extremely difficult for people and like the mental health and everything. So we were going through not just like a transformation of work or what work looked like, but we were also going through like a pandemic that affected so many people differently and like economies. And obviously it was stressful. So it was not just like, oh, um flexibility with the schedules, but also like flexibility accepting the fact that everyone is, you know, going through something and we have to be
Exactly. Yeah.
understanding with everyone's coping mechanisms and
Yeah,
communication
because
styles.
you've employed people, not machines, and people have a whole life that's happening. And I think flexible hours has been one of the most amazing things I've seen happen at work, because it's allowed people, and like myself included, to take care of their parents, to catch flights when they need to go and sit at the deathbed of a family member.
Oh, that
It's
is
just given
depressing.
so much flexibility. I'm sorry, yeah, but it's true. Like, it's literally opened up so many avenues, and honestly, it's allowed them to still be productive. And that's the same thing, I guess, what I would like to touch on that has been very interesting. Like, I've never been a part of it, but just to hear that it's happening is the recent, like, I don't know if anyone's aware, but globally, in certain countries like the UK, I think France and the US, there were some places that were trialing a 4-day work week. And I just think that is so cool because, yeah, it's radical, but even just like imagine a whole extra day. Like, that would give people so much time to spend with their family, go for appointments, or just take care of their mental health. Like, honestly, it would be so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I know.
What would you do if you had an extra day?
I probably just. I think I would dedicate that whole day for appointments because I try to
Mm,
fit all my appointments throughout the week. Like if they are like doctor's appointments, just because
yeah,
honestly, paying extra fees on the weekend is not worth it. So I would just like try to fit them in. Just because
yeah.
lately this year, I mean, I've had to deal with a lot of like blood tests and like appointments with doctors and stuff like that. So I would just much rather have a day where I can do that and then just nap because
Exactly.
I needed it. I need it.
It's so true. People need it. And I think this, so there's an article from the Sydney Morning Herald, and it was a mother who had a child with autism. And she worded it so well. She said it's like having the flexibility of a part time job, but the pay and security of a full time job,
Oh, that's awesome.
essentially. And I think that's so cool because, like, just to be clear, what a 4-day work week is just you work less hours, but you still have the pay of a full time pay. So essentially, you are working 4 days, but your pay doesn't take a hit. And guess what? Out of the trial, a lot of companies saw that productivity actually went up. It
That
did
is
not
awesome.
suffer. Yeah, because people turn up refreshed. There's less burnout. There's less people feeling anxious. About a third of the people reported feeling less anxious. And then there were also 38% of the people said they were less stressed. 62% of the people had an increase in general positive emotions. And absenteeism actually fell by 44%. So more people were turning up, more people were happy to turn up, and more people, I think, yeah, just were turning up in general. Yeah, just people
I
turning
think
up.
it's really interesting because when you asked me that question, I was like, yeah, I would also like, sorry, I was like, I would dedicate my, like, that time for medical appointments. But now,
Mm.
like, that I'm thinking about it, like, I'm also like studying at uni now, and we have this podcast. Like, surely that day wouldn't actually be like a break day or like just appointments day,
Yeah.
because obviously, like, my life is not going to be full of medical appointments all the time. But I would probably just like have more time for to do things that are also
Yeah,
contributing to
to
my
study.
professional
Yeah.
development. And it would be good because, yeah, I would become more of an asset for the company, and then I would also have time to rest and reconnect with other people, you know. And I think that's
Yeah.
important because I feel like a lot of the people that I work with, when we have like a really, and I'm gonna throw them all under the bus. No, I'm kidding. But what I mean is, it's a joke. I swear to
No,
God,
it's fine.
it's a joke. But I guess what I mean is like when you have a deadline that is like extremely like, you know, demanding, and you have been working hard, like what you were saying, like 50-hour week or like 60-hour weeks, and then you're doing a lot of hours during the week, then you don't really rest on the weekends.
You
Like
really don't.
you really need, like if you are getting up or like showing up to work at like 6 a.m., let's say, like something crazy like that, not that I have done it recently, but some people that
Mm.
I know have. And if they are doing that and then they get to the weekend and they are like probably absolutely dead, like, you know, like how are they
And it's like,
functioning?
honestly, if you break down a weekend, to be honest, maybe Saturday you get a little bit of, like, okay, but let's not label it a day. One day you get a little bit of socializing, but on the other day there's general life admin, house chores, all of that needs to be done, and
Yeah,
that's probably a
preparing
day's worth of work and prepping for the future, like the
for
next
the
week to
week.
come. So let's pretend a whole day goes in that. You only really get one day off.
And then no, and like let's think
Yeah.
about it. Like there's a lot of people that have families and the families have
Mm.
commitments, or there's a lot of people that have friends and friends have commitments. And you
Yeah.
also
Or
want to
then you have
make sure
kids.
that, yes, and friends.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
And yeah, and friends,
and
yes.
pets. I don't know.
Exactly. And there's so much that, like, there's a time that's being demanded. There's their growth that's being demanded. If you have children, you probably want to take them to like sports things or, cultural activities because you want to grow them into like well-rounded citizens. So it's huge. Like, we're asking a lot of the people, and it's difficult when people want to follow their calling, which is work, but also want to not balance. I don't,
We don't
anyway,
believe in balance anymore.
we don't believe in balance. We don't. So it's just about trying to grow both spheres of life.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to put it? I hope.
Well, I think
Yeah,
it is sort of. I feel like the work balance can easily be misinterpreted because a lot of people. I think it's just more sustainable. Is that a word that you would use?
I guess so. Or just, what's that thing? Juggling. Like, if you're trying to juggle all these things, you don't want to drop a glass bowl, essentially. Because, yeah, they're all important. And I do think they're all important and they should be given the time they deserve. And just because we've been used to this concept of working 38 and a half hours a week doesn't mean it should be the norm going forward.
I agree, and that's why I love
Yeah.
I love the fact that millennials, haha, have actually come up with like, I don't know. I love how they are big advocates of flexibility
Yeah.
and
But even the
actually
pandemic played
and
such a big role.
fulfillment.
I feel like, yeah,
Sorry.
sorry, I just cut you off. Please finish that thought properly.
And that's why I love that the millennials are such big advocates for flexibility and fulfillment. I'm not having a go at the other generations, by the way, because I do acknowledge and I
Mm.
am aware of the fact that those
Yeah.
generations were going through like wars, or the access to
Yeah.
technology again wasn't as available. I'm not having
Yeah.
a go
Or
at
it
you
was
guys,
just
I
taking
swear.
off, and
It's
yeah, it
just like,
didn't sound like it, but
okay, cool.
yeah. But just, yeah, the only reason I think not the only reason, but another thing, like if we've just come out of something as big as a global pandemic, and taught us a lot. It taught people to care about their mental health, to care about their families, and to put less pressure on how they earn money to as that being their identity. And I feel like going out of this, we shouldn't forget that immediately. Like I know everything tends to settle back to its normal, what is it called, like asymptote to a certain level, and we might just end up forgetting these things, but we shouldn't, because it is positive to understand that, your work is not everything. It's just an aspect of your life.
Oh my God,
And
yes.
there's
And I
so
was
many
gonna
other
say, like,
ways to, yeah,
even though like things go back to normality in the sense of like people go to travel and everything, I don't think you'll ever go back to being the same. At least, like, it's something that has
mm,
changed us. It's like when the Second World War happened, like, no one went back to forgetting about the fact that that happened. Like, you just use these experiences or these circumstances that we go through to make the most out of it. Like, for example, not make the most out of it after having said the Second World War statement that doesn't really tie in, but sorry, it's just like I was heavily inflicted by so that thought was awful. But what I mean is, like, we learn from these events that have happened throughout, history. And the point, as you said, is gaining or getting those tools that that event
exactly.
left. Because otherwise, we are just like reinventing the wheel, or like we're just gonna
Mm.
like never gonna learn, and history repeats itself. Ah,
And I like that you talk about, yeah, not inventing a wheel, because yeah, we have this wheel and it works, but we'd like to optimize it. At the end of the day, if it's getting a bit creaky, you obviously want to oil it and make sure it's functioning well, because you'd want to optimize it for humanity in general, not just for capitalism, not just for, the sakes of making money or making a company work. You want the people to function better. And we know that people work best when they have control of their schedules, they're happier, and can organize their days around their biorhythms, chores, home responsibilities, and hobbies. So
yeah,
it's more likely that they'll also stay in a job that allows them to do that. So another outcome of the study was that staff retention also improved. So for
yeah,
companies really struggling to see how to improve retention,
yeah. And I think, yeah, yeah, Sohan, we saw your
yeah.
face. This this reminded me of the conversation that we had on our lunch with the people that we interview for the podcast.
Exactly.
Because I feel like, yes, one of the, I guess, differences from organizations that are globally known is that element of freedom, of trust in the employees, and like just
Yeah.
giving them enough, I guess, trust and freedom again to do whatever they want to do. And that actually feel, it's like, okay, I just got this thought, and I love the fact that everything that I like, all the comments that I make are like relationship related. I've noticed. So it's like being in a relationship that makes you be independent. If you're independent and you like can do your own thing, you're more willing, you are more likely, sorry, to stay with that person. If you're in a relationship where you can actually be your own person and you are not free to do whatever you want, and I don't mean go and kiss many people. We don't believe in polyamorous relationships. This got
No, that's
this
it's good
this
because there
got
is a
so
standard.
weird.
Yeah, it's
Well, you'll be
but it
happier.
also
That's what
makes
I
sense.
meant.
There's
Yeah,
a standard
thank you so
somewhere.
much.
And just because you're saying some things are acceptable doesn't mean we're throwing everything up for grabs. I like
Yeah,
that.
of course, there's going
Yeah.
to be a standards, and that's why we have contracts. But there's also this encouragement of let people come up with ideas, let people be creative, let people be willing to bring the weirdness to the workplace and deal with it. Thank you. Bye.
And that's pretty much it. I think that is all of our thoughts on this topic, because again, we just like to restate that it doesn't necessarily work for every industry. Completely understand, like something that requires shift work, like nursing, or I don't know,
Nursing.
cleaning jobs or something. It might not necessarily work for those jobs, but in areas where this could work, we'd be keen to see it used. And I guess globally, some other people were also keen to see it used. And it was used and it had decent responses. But again, long term impacts, we're not pretending to know how this works because it's new, uncharted territory. So we just like to put it out there that this is a thing, and we'd like to know whether anyone else has been interested in this or have tried it. Always keen to hear thoughts. And that's it. Ciao from me.
Yeah, always keen to hear your thoughts on this. If you think that this is something that you don't think it would work in, like from an economy
Yeah.
perspective or
Tell us
from
why.
something, tell us, share it with us, and we could even have you on the podcast. Haha. And yes,
Yeah, and
let's
if you like what we listen
go.
to, hit the subscribe button
Yeah,
because it would
subscribe
tell us
always,
that you like,
and
yeah,
follow,
what we're
and
doing, and
like,
it
and share.
and it keeps us going just to know that what we're doing is appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.